From the Newsmax studio in New York City, here is Steve Malzberg.
Your friend Vin Weber said this was an earthquake that nobody thought you would lose. And watching you on election night, you certainly looked stunned. Did this completely shock you?
Absolutely, Jonathan. I don't think anybody in the country thought that the outcome would be what it was.
All right, folks. Remember Eric Cantor's big primary defeat? It seems ages ago, but it wasn't that long ago. And we're joined now by Matthew Brooks, Executive Director of the Republican Jewish Coalition. Hey, Matthew.
Hey, Steve. How you doing?
Good, good. Thank you. Well, a big story in the New York Times, and your organization prominently featured for a response to the fact that front page, as a matter of fact, New York Times, that after Eric Cantor, you know, unless another one is elected in November, there will be no Jewish Republicans in the House or the Senate. Is this really a reason for concern?
Well, I mean, it's obviously we would love to have more Jewish Republicans serving in the House and the Senate, and we're working very hard to make sure that a number of terrific candidates who are Jewish and Republican who are running this time, including two great candidates in New York with Bruce Blakeman and Lee Zeldin, and in California with Ilan Carr and others are Micah Edmonds in Virginia, and Adam Quasman and we're obviously disappointed by the loss of Eric Cantor, who was a terrific leader and a great ambassador to the Jewish community on behalf of the Republican Party. In terms of the impact that it's going to have policy-wise, I'm confident that unlike the Democrats, we have 234 Republican members. I would say 230 of them are about as strong and solid on the issues that we care about as Eric Cantor was. And it's a testament to Eric's leadership over the years to help educate his colleagues. But there's no question that the Republicans in the House and in the Senate are going to remain resolute and steadfast on issues like preventing Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon and standing shoulder to shoulder with Israel in this time of crisis and the other issues that the Jewish community worries about.
Yeah, I got to say, it is a great testament to Eric Cantor, but it's also a great testament to the fact that Republicans have become the party that stands for Israel. I mean, we have a president, and his Democratic cohorts in the House and Senate. I don't see them up in arms and outraged over the treatment of the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, by this administration. The comments made, I haven't seen the Democrats, the Jewish Democrats in the House or Senate, hold a press conference and say, we must stop supporting Hamas with our finances, with taxpayer money, as part of a unity government with the Palestinians. I mean, so, maybe if you had a whole Congress, a whole House or Senate full of Jews, if they're Democrats, it seems like it doesn't really matter.
Well, I think that's a great point, and it's very clear that when the chips are down, it's been the Republicans, quite frankly, who have been the most willing to go to bat and to stand up. And by the way, on critical issues, I mean, it's the Republicans who continue to push for enhanced sanctions on Iran, especially as every day they go through this process of dragging out these negotiations in Vienna. Is one day that they keep getting closer and closer to acquiring the capability for a nuclear weapon, and it's the Republicans who are pushing for that. It's the Democrats in the House, and it's Harry Reid in the Senate who are blocking it in order to support President Obama. But there's other instances too where the Jewish Democrats have failed to stand shoulder to shoulder with the Republicans and lead, and that's on issues like support for Chuck Hagel as Secretary of Defense, in which almost every Republican was unified in opposition, and quite simply, if guys like Chuck Schumer and others had stepped up and I think really represented the interests of the Jewish community, Chuck Hagel wouldn't have been confirmed.
A poll that I cited yesterday, and this goes beyond a Republican elected official in the House or the Senate. This speaks to members of the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, and support.
The Pew Research poll.
Yeah, support for Israel, showing that since the hostilities have broken out here, since the last time they polled, support for Israel versus support for the Palestinians, Republicans have increased. It's like something around 70% or 70 and change. 77.
Yeah,
okay,
77.
That's significant. And Democrats, if I have my memory right, 46 or so percent support for Israel.
Yeah, below 48.
Yeah,
48, below 50%.
Yeah, and what is that? I mean, what has happened to this party?
Well, again, and I don't take comfort in this, and as much as I am a partisan, I fundamentally believe that the Jewish community in America actually is better off having strong bipartisan support for Israel. So these numbers trouble me greatly and disappoint me, in terms of the erosion of support that we're seeing within the Democratic Party. If you remember, Steve, in Charlotte during the Democratic convention, what we witnessed there should have the hair on the back of everybody's neck stand up. I mean, literally, they forgot to include or chose not to include recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of the Democratic Party, and correctly so. There was an uproar, and then if you remember, they tried to insert it back. It was voted down on the floor, and there were actually boos and jeers by the rank and file Democrats about recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel.
It was a voice vote, and in the face of the response of that voice vote, which was negative, the man, I forget who it was on the stage at the time, the podium at the time, said it passed, and people started booing. Yeah, that was some spectacle, absolutely. But unfortunately, and I don't take any comfort in saying this either as a Jewish American Jew. Still, Obama and the Democrats continue to get this unwavering Jewish support.
Well, I wouldn't say it's unwavering. I'd say it's one of the things that people lose sight of is that Republicans have gained market share from Jewish voters in 5 of the last 6 national elections. In 1992, the Republicans under George H.W. Bush got 11% of the Jewish vote. Bob Dole got 16% of the Jewish vote. George Bush, his first time running, got 19%, then 24% in his reelect. John McCain was the one candidate in 2008 that lost some traction, went down to 22%. But the interesting thing is in 2012, a year when Republicans were getting wiped out across the board, we actually increased our share of the Jewish vote by almost 50%. Mitt Romney got 32% of the Jewish vote and had a huge increase. So Democrats are certainly a positive trend.
No, that is. You educated me. Let's go overseas for a second. And earlier in the show, I played some video of a synagogue outside of Paris, or in Paris. They were outside the synagogue. Protesters, whatever you want to call them, basically keeping inside fearful Jewish worshipers who were afraid to come out because of Europe and support for the Palestinians, shouting down, Israel. And, these people are supporting Hamas over Israel, and it's a great excuse for every anti-Semitic bigot in the world to come crawling out of the woodwork. Yep,
it is very. These are perilous times. I mean, there's no question. It's you see all the constellation of incidences and data points that are happening over the all across the globe, and if you start connecting the dots, it's a very troubling picture.
It is a very troubling picture. All right, so again, to summarize on this Eric Cantor, first of all, what do you think the future of Eric Cantor is?
Oh, I think Eric will have whatever he chooses to do. Eric is somebody who will have an impact, and I think the final chapter for Eric Cantor is far from written at this point.
All right, Matthew, I appreciate you coming on and talking about this, and we'll speak to you again, sir. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Matthew Brooks, ladies and gentlemen, Executive Director of the Republican Jewish Coalition. And, for the New York Times to put a story on the front page, Republican Jews alarmed at the prospect of a void in the House and Senate. I'm a Republican Jew, and as I indicated in my conversation with Matthew, I'm much more alarmed at the Jewish Democrats in the House and the Senate. I have much more confidence in the Republican Party with an elected Jewish official or not to have the interests of America, the interests of Israel, my interests as an American, my interests as a Jewish American at heart, and to act on that than I do Jewish Democrats for the most part in the House and Senate. I think this article was written to send a message to scare Republicans and to show the Republican Party as being somehow anti-Jewish, which is nothing could be further from the truth. I wish they'd do a big story here on the 40th anniversary approaching of Nixon's resignation of how Richard Nixon saved the state of Israel. That's right. That's right. Richard Nixon saved the state of Israel. Look it up. Read about it. Read about the airlift at the behest of Golda Meir when Israel was in dire straits and needed weapons immediately. And I think he was a Republican on the Steve Malzberg Show.